Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Wild and Untamed. I am your host, Lara Raybone, and today we are diving into all of the things with the incredible Lyons, who is the founder of Chakra Girl Co and the Rituals by Chakra Girl App, which is your daily dose of spiritual rituals for the modern woman. The Rituals app is actually a video library of on-demand rituals which are bringing you into higher consciousness, one activated chakra at a time, and drawing parallels between spirituality, luxury, abundance, soul's purpose, and multidimensionality in the most delicious and digestible way. Amber Lee is the host of the podcast Chakra Girl Radio, where she interviews top experts and spiritual celebrities alike to share their insights, their rituals, and their energy hacks that have led them to their path of ascension. And what I love is that her audience walks away from each and every episode with tangible practices to implement into their own daily routines. And then she's got this beautiful offering of the app as well that supports you more deeply in coming into a space of ritual and really forming your daily practice to connect with the divine. And that's something that we speak about in this episode today. We dive into the ascension process and what actually that entails. It's not just the rising, but it's also the releasing around the things that are no longer serving us. We dive into Christ consciousness, with both of us having experienced a resistance to religion in the past from our previous experience, really diving into this resurgence of Christ consciousness and actually seeing a lot of people who are quote unquote new age spiritualists returning back to the teachings of Christ and really diving into what that means for us on a personal level, but what we're witnessing in the collective as well. We also dive into how to align to your highest timeline and the energetics of conscious manifestation when we're setting these goals and these targets, especially in business or in manifestation and in life. Like, what does it actually mean to manifest, and how do we actually do that? Because that can be such a pattern that we've seen, both of us, in the coaching industries around like chasing the numbers and the validation and the car and the things, but actually really inviting you to dive into what it is that you truly desire and what is really aligned to your highest timeline. We also dive into the potency of consistency in manifesting your dreams and creating a conscious ritual, the power of prayer, and cultivating your own connection to God. This is so jam-packed, and I'm so excited for you to dive in. I hope you enjoy. Please feel free to comment in the comment section. Watch it on YouTube, where you get to see our faces and our reactions and feel our energy. But without further ado, I will leave it there. And like I said, I hope you enjoy. Amberly, welcome to Wild and Untamed. Thank you so much for being here. I am beyond excited for our conversation together today.
Thanks for having me. I've been excited for this one too.
Yeah, I mean, last time we checked in with each other, it was just like bam, 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 bam. So I'm really excited for everything that's going to come through here.
The synergy, the gold just flows through with us. So yeah, I'm excited.
I am here for all of it.
Yes.
So I think that one of the pieces that is really present, and I love that you touched upon this before we dropped in on our call, about speaking into the ascension process that we're essentially moving into right now, that we're going through as a collective, and actually the importance and the resurgence of Christed consciousness. And so for anybody who is listening, who's unfamiliar perhaps with what is Christ consciousness, maybe people have a resistance come up in their body because they associate Christ with Christianity, but that maybe they don't necessarily resonate with Christianity and the teachings of Christianity. I can witness that a lot of people contract around the Christ consciousness, but I would love to hear from you and from your experience what the Christ consciousness is and why it's important right now, what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I find it kind of funny that people are so open to, and I get it because I was like this too. People are so open to like the spiritual work. They're so open to talking to the universe. They're so open to talking to Pleiadians and aliens. But when it comes to like using the word Christ or Jesus or God, even God, people really have a feeling around that. And that's because we've been programmed into thinking that it's only for a specific type of person, that when we don't resonate with that, you know, organized religion, or maybe we were brought up in that and there's some kind of like religious trauma. And I just feel like what I've seen and what I've with lots of people and what I've seen in my own life is like God finds you when you're ready. And when that happens and you open up to, I want to use the word manifestation, but it's more like, it's like manifestation, like worshiping, gratitude, like in the name of God or in the Christ consciousness, like that is the real work. And I've found that, and I'm not, and where it also gets kind of sticky is that there have been a lot of people who have like completely denounced all spirituality because they've, you know, found God and now they're going down this different path. I believe that it's all can be done together, like all of the, you know, spiritual work can be done simultaneously with like, you know, deepening the connection to God. And I know in like spirituality, like Jesus is considered an ascended master, just like Kuan Yin, you know? So, so yeah, it's like, I feel like right now there's a lot of people waking up to a deeper connection to God, learning about Jesus, you know, A Course in Miracles, the Bible, whatever it is for you or however you're kind of getting that deeper connection. And I think that that's happening because there is an opening, like there's an opening in the higher dimensional portals. So like Christ consciousness starts like in the 9th dimension, so they say. So if that's opening up and we're getting more access to that light, then people are starting to wake up to it. But then where it gets sticky, like I said, is where people are like, well, can I be this and this? Can I, have these tendencies towards like Jesus and Christ while also being spiritual? And to me, the answer is yes. And you need to do you and do what works for you. So I'm seeing, like, are you seeing this a lot too?
Yes. And it's really interesting that you have brought up like that resistance, that the piece around religion, because I went to a school that was connected to a cathedral. So twice every week we would go to mass, and it was this beautiful cathedral, but so many of the teachings didn't resonate, or like I would speak to God. I didn't know who or what I was speaking to. And there was this inclination to pray, but I did it in private. I didn't talk about it. And it wasn't something that I connected with the teachings of Christianity. And I think that there was a lot of resistance to me actually using the word God for a really long time because of the associations and the programming that actually came along with that. And I'm definitely seeing this resurgence and this a lot of people who have identified as spiritual touching upon Jesus Christ, Mary Magdalene, and like the teachings of like God and Christianity. I say this because the biblical teachings of God. So that's where I kind of, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm doing like air quotes, because that had never really truly resonated. And I think that with this return of Christ consciousness, I believe that what Jesus was teaching was love. And it was how to embody unconditional love and to see the world and relationship, like his relationship with Mary Magdalene, like it was to build their own innate power, to build up the light body, the Christ body, to actually strengthen in their own embodiment of love. And that's actually what the Christ consciousness to me is.
100%.
And so
it doesn't matter what shape it takes. Like for you, for me, like we all have different beliefs that we resonate with, but essentially if it's anchored in love and it embodies the frequency of love, and that's what gives you the access to the higher dimensional portals and the access to connecting to or reclaiming our ancient DNA or ancestors from the future, or, you know, whatever these pieces are, it's all a reclamation of the allness that we are.
Exactly. And I think like there are teachings in the Bible that I believe have been like skewed. Like, I'm like, I don't think that's what they meant. Like, so even like the resurrection, like, okay, he died for your sins. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? But the way I see it is like, he wanted to show us that we are more powerful than our bodies. Like, we are not just a body, we are a soul. And he's like, okay, watch this, you know? And he's like, I'll show you how powerful you are, how powerful we are. And so like, I just feel like there's like certain things that we can take away, and learn if once we can kind of remove that stigma around it and not need to like label ourselves in any which way because we're now learning about this new side of things. So it's just interesting that I've been seeing it a lot, and I never thought that I would be, you know, going down this path, but yeah, I mean, it just, once it speaks to you and once you start connecting to that energy, you're like, okay, this feels good. Like, this feels right for me. And you can kind of make it what you want, like do it your own way without having to label it in any way.
Yeah. And I think that there's so much freedom in that. There's so much freedom in your own expression of your connection with spirit, because essentially as well, yes, we are human vessels. I also believe that our human vessels have so much potential in the physiology that we're not even aware of. Like, we're starting to scratch the surface. Like, I don't know whether you've been experiencing this. I know that we touched base and I'd said something about having crazy dreams and you were like, girl, yes. Like dream space, astral, like travel, and all of the processing in dream space has been really ramped up. Yeah. I've been noticing telepathy really strong. Like, I will have a thought and then someone will message me in response to that thought, or I will think of something and then I won't speak it, I won't search it, and then my adverts on my IG will come up and I'll be like, wait, I literally just thought about that. Yeah. I'm curious as to what you've been experiencing in terms of, as we witness this raise in consciousness, like different gifts and activations within your realms and worlds.
Definitely. Like rapid fire manifestations, like wild, the dreams, 100%. And just like a newfound clarity of what actually matters in life. Like, that's probably been the biggest takeaway for me. Is like, it was like everything's kind of been like a stripping away. Like, I've stripped away a lot. And it was actually interesting. Another like kind of like biblical reference was talking about the Last Supper. And there's like this kind of, there was like this reinterpretation of it, and about how, you know, and like, we think that we're going through the end of the world right now because the world's so crazy, but what we're actually doing is like old parts of ourselves are dying, and they're meant to die. And without those old parts of ourselves dying, then the new earth and the new versions of ourselves can't be born. So I haven't necessarily like, I mean, I think because I have done so much work, haven't necessarily been having like super dark times or anything like that, but definitely like stripping away and releasing of things that I thought mattered, but actually don't. Even like I talked to you, I like moved to the country. Like, no, like everyone that knows me is like, what? Like, what? Like, that is so not you. You're like penthouse girl. Like, what's going on? And I'm like, yeah, like, you know, I feel a call to be in nature. I don't feel connected to certain things that used to kind of be part of my identity. So it's like stripping away of parts of our identity that aren't going to take us to the next level.
Yeah. And like, when you experience these death processes, and I know that you just touched upon as well that you've done a lot of work. So the more you devote to doing the work and really coming home to the truth of who you are and being in the embodied expression of that, the easier it can get. And also these death portals can feel like physical deaths. Like truly, honestly, I went through one at the end of last year. Like it was the first time I've really experienced a gray winter in a long time. And it really reflected in just this death, this dying, this releasing. And I think that it's also really important to touch upon with the manifestations and what it is that we're calling in the fifth dimension, or in this like ascension of consciousness. Like, who is your higher self embodiment in this realm? And actually looking at like, what do you need to release? Like, that's a way that you can actively do the work before it kind of comes and bites you in the ass and goes, right, death portal, let's fucking go.
Exactly. And that's the thing too. And I've always said this, like, our chakras know what to do. Our chakras know how to manifest everything we want to manifest. So rather than focusing on what we want to manifest, focus on what we need to release. And then whatever is meant to manifest, which could be way bigger and better for you than what you've got in your mind, then it can come through. So it's like, if we focus our attention more on the releasing than the getting knows how to happen. That's already natural. You're a magnetic being. So it's like, I just think we need to look at it in a different way.
I love that. And I would actually really love for you to expand on like manifestation and abundance through what you have lived through. And I know that your brand has been built on like the spirituality and like the luxury and the abundance and the beauty of being able to play in both worlds. Because I think that also the way that we identify as spiritual beings is shifting and changing, and there's a lot of paradigms that are changing. So I would love for you to touch upon a little bit more about the manifestation process and the energetics behind manifesting and expanding on what you just touched on.
Yeah, I've always I would say since 2020, I've even like when I say manifestation, I always say like conscious manifestation. Because what we see a lot of is people wanting to manifest material things, which I don't think that's not a bad thing. We're allowed to want nice things, but we shouldn't want nice things from a place of being validated. Like, I want this because then it means I'm cool. I want this because then this person will think I'm, interesting. I want this because then I'll look rich. Like, that's not the point of it. Like, abundance and luxury is meant to be an expression of what's already inside. So when you already feel abundant, when you already feel luxurious, when you treat yourself amazing, when you pamper yourself, when you spoil yourself with love, then those physical manifestations automatically start happening. So and here's the thing, it's like, we're also human, and we're also bombarded with images of this is what you're supposed to think is sexy and cool. And, so it's easy to, I still have that, like, oh, I really wish I had that car. And then it's like, really? Like, really? Do I need that? And it's not even about, do I need that? It's about like, why do I want that? And really asking yourself. And it's okay to have, that small piece of you that thinks like, oh, this is going to make me cool. Like, it's kind of natural and normal to like have that. But we need to use that little signal, because we know what that feels like, right? It's almost like this like graspy, grabby feeling. And we know what that feels like. So when we have that feeling, we can use that to be like, okay, what is it that I'm, what is the validation I need here, and how can I give that to myself? And once you start giving yourself a validation, either A, you're going to realize that you don't really care about that thing, or B, all of a sudden it's going to just happen for you if it's meant to be there. And what I found in my own life too is like, and we talked about this a little bit too, like the coaching industry is an interesting place because it's easy to get caught up in that, in the wanting from a place of validation. Oh, if I have 100K month, that means I'm successful. That means I've reached my goals. That means I'm whatever. Like you're making it mean something about you. So, but what I find is this happens to me, when you're chasing a number for no reason, it's like you'll make that money, but it's like, it doesn't it doesn't change your life. Like it really doesn't. So I'm not saying you shouldn't want that abundance, but I'm saying you should be manifesting the feeling and embodying the feeling. And that's your job every day, not to like do this like 7-step manifestation process. Like, no, it's like, if you want to feel, if you think having this certain lifestyle is going to make you feel cool, pretty, fun, interesting, successful, you need to work. If those are feelings you want to feel, then you need to work on feeling those now, because those things aren't going to make you feel that way. And then you're just going to want more and more and more and more and burn yourself to the ground. And I know that because I did that. It's like, I could reach every goal I wanted to, like, we can, as a spiritual being, as, a powerful woman, as a businesswoman, like, you set a goal, you can make it. Like everyone can do that. But if it's for the wrong reason, it will fall apart, it will fall away, or you'll get it and realize that it wasn't important in the first place. So when we can kind of shift our perspective around manifestation and around our own worthiness and why we want what we want, that's when the manifestations that actually are meant to be there happen. The things that actually fulfill you, the things that maybe you didn't think you wanted, but then you get them and you're like, oh, now I do feel successful. Now I do feel happy. Now I do feel fulfilled. But that was never really that wasn't, on your vision board because you just didn't think of it. Does that make sense?
And I think that this goes really beautifully. Yeah, it makes perfect sense because when you connect to the vibration and you connect to the power of the body, and also this comes from consistency. It comes from consistently choosing yourself and the vibration that you want to every day. And that's something that isn't necessarily always spoken about. And when you commit to feeling those feelings, and like if we were to drop in on a practice right now and I was to invite us both to feel the feeling of gratitude, you can still access that feeling of gratitude, even if you've got nothing in your physical vicinity to actually be grateful directly for. You can still cultivate feelings. And I think that that's something that's really powerful to really highlight, is that when we come into visualization practices or committing to feeling a certain way, it's accessible for everybody. And the piece of when you commit to that daily practice of I'm going to feel love, gratitude, forgiveness, like whatever the high vibration, like thankfulness, joy, ecstasy, bliss, pleasure, whatever it is. And then the universe hears, or God hears, hey, this is the signal that they are sending out. I'm going to send them way more than they even could possibly fathom themselves. And this comes back to our original conversation with God, is I think that as we raise in consciousness and as we realize what is actually important to us, leaning into that trust in God, in the universe, to bring what is actually meant for us and more, rather than thinking that we know what's best for us, because actually, do we?
Exactly. And the trust piece, the faith piece, like that's like number freaking one. Exactly. And I love what you said about consistency, because that was, again, one of my big lessons in like my more recent awakening. And it was, and again, just to put it in like business talk from like the business side, I was in a very, I don't want to say like I had like an all or nothing tendency. Like if I'm in something, I'm all in. So it was like, I would be, having these, I would set a goal, slay it. And then it was like, okay, what's the next goal? And then say, so it was always like this up, down, up, down, up, down. You know, it was like it was never like a consistent growth. Like it was like whenever I would like set a huge goal and then I would go on a journey and I would achieve it. But it was not a sustainable, steady growth, because every time I wanted more, it took more out of me. So a reason that I shifted from the way I was doing business to how I'm doing it now is because everything comes back to foundation and consistency, and just getting like, I always say, like, I just want to be 1% better every day. You know, if I can be 1% better every day, that makes like, that's what is going to actually make the changes in our lives. So I'm not saying like, don't dream big at all, but I'm saying consistent. It's the small things. It's like those little daily rituals, the daily connection with God, getting into that vibration as often as you can. You know, that's what's going to get you the manifestations that your soul actually needs, not those, you know, those ones that are just going to fall away.
Yeah. And it's funny that you bring that up, because we're recording this episode we just stepped into eclipse season, and this is the epitome of the giving your soul what it needs. And soul growth is sometimes not what we think like what our human needs. And that consistency piece, I think a lot of entrepreneurs as well. I have an amazing friend, she's called Embodied by Jews, and she is a trauma-informed coach. And she had shared with me that a lot of entrepreneurs have a disorganized pattern of like the high highs and then the low lows, and you get addicted to the high highs and the low lows because your system is not wired for consistency. Yeah, exactly. Your system is wired to thrive off of the high highs and the low lows. But to your point,
that's been like probably my biggest lesson in life with everything, like to find just steady, consistent growth rather than like that, like all or nothing energy. And it's like that with everything, like see, like with dieting or with, you know, anything that you're just like, and working, like you work your ass off. And then you're like, okay, I need to take, you know, a vacation, or I need to rest. Like it shouldn't be that way. Like we shouldn't be working so hard that we need to, you know, then completely shut off.
Yeah. And I think that this comes, like this is all tying in so beautifully as well, is the more we lean into consistency, the more you actually have to lean into trust. Because when you know that you're doing the high highs and the low lows, then you're addicted to that pattern, and almost like being rescued by yourself or by others when you have gone into the burnout, you learn with the consistency to consistently trust in self and to consistently trust in God. And in the divine, and in bringing to you what it is that your soul truly, deeply needs, craves for its expansion. Because when we are depleting ourselves, we're actually robbing ourselves of that life force energy, and we limit our ability to create.
Yeah, 100%. I think that was like, this was, I think in 2020, this is when I was like, okay, like once the light bulb went off on that, I was like, everything needs to change. And like and again, like I was used to having, you know, those huge cash months and those big things happening, and like the slowness of building, cause we've like built an app and we've, you know, rebranded, and like it's all happened very, very slow. And like there's still part of me that's like, no, like I need to get X amount of people by X date. And there's like still a big part of me that goes there. But then the part of me, and I can see when I'm in those moods is when subscriptions slow down. And then when I get into a place of like, no, like you don't need to get, you know, 1,000 new people a day, like you're fine. Then when I have fun with it, then that's when they go up, you know? So it's not necessarily something that you can just turn on or off. It's something that is like a transition. but I just think, I think this is my life's work, like, and it might take a while, but every time I lean deeper and deeper into that trust and that consistency is where I'm seeing now the fulfilling things that feel way more fulfilling than, what I thought was fulfilling.
Yeah. And I think that this is also the piece of the raising consciousness, right?
Totally.
Is that we get to be ourselves. And like you just reflected as well, like when you drop into that trust and actually your joy and your pleasure, that is when you see sales going up, or when you see signups going up. And
exactly.
That's also what I'm witnessing in this raising consciousness and the instant manifestations. It's always when you're in your joy, when you're in your element and you're actually enjoying the fuck out of your life, rather than focusing on achieving something that is, yes, amazing to achieve, and also maybe not founded on the strongest foundation, or maybe it's empty. Maybe it's an empty desire. Like we're really being invited to lead from our hearts, I feel.
100%.
I would love to hear from you, like what your experience with like multi-dimensions has been. I would love to like dive into the multidimensionality of existence, because I think that so many people listening as well, we talk about the 3D, we talk about the 5D, and at the beginning you touched upon like connecting to other entities and like Pleiadians and all of the things. And I think there's a lot of talk in that as well with this raise in consciousness, and it's being brought into more people's awareness. So I would love to just hear some more about your experience with multi-dimensions and actually how that's affected you.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I've really been noticing, I think we chatted about this too, is like time. Like I'm with the multidimensionality, like it's like parallel, like there are like parallel timelines happening. And I think for me, like that's been the craziest thing, is like when you're like, oh wow, I've done this before. I've been here before. Like I'm noticing those things happening. But I feel like there was like a split moment where I was like, okay, I'm on the higher timeline now. Like I could like feel that happening. I actually I was walking outside and I literally felt like I walked through like an energy portal, and I could like see it, and it was like zapped me. And then I was like, whoa, okay. And then I could like hear the birds chirping and the sun and everything. It was just, everything was so much more vivid. But yeah, I mean, it's been so many little things, and yeah, definitely like opening up and having more ability to like channel and talk to more kind of like starseed planets. But here's the thing too, it's like part of me is a little turned off by that right now. Like I feel like there's a lot of dark energies that are very good at masking themselves as light energies. And so again, I'm just turning to God for all things now, because that it's like at the end of the day, who's the most powerful? Who created these aliens? Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So it's like, I'm just gonna step above you guys and go to him. Cause yeah, I've had some, I don't know. I'm curious your thought on that. Like have you done any work with like Pleiadians or any of that?
It's not been something that I have specifically connected to in terms of galactics, but I've been very connected always to Atlantis, and like Lemuria has come into my consciousness.
So those things I still play there. Yes, definitely. But yeah. So when I was in Tulum recently, like I had like wild Atlantis flashbacks, and I just kept seeing things everywhere, and yeah, that was really interesting. But yeah, because I think it's like if we lived there, that was a more recent timeline, right? So it's like it was that was a human energy, more of a human energy. For me, I'm finding, like I said, just lately, I feel really dark around any of the Pleiadian stuff. And I've kind of decided that I'm not going to be going there anymore for the time being.
Well, that's actually really interesting that you'd said that, because it's been something that I've heard in the realms, and when we're talking about the multidimensionalities, and you're speaking about your remembrance you experienced in Tulum, I had very similar timeline kind of collapses when I was in Kauai, Hawaii, and Sedona. Again, like a very similar kind of remembrance of previous timelines and previous incarnations. So multidimensionality in terms of when you're in the earth plane, remembrance, and where the veil is slightly thin, and having these aha moments of, oh yeah, I've been here before. Oh, I remember this. Oh, I don't really know how else to describe it other than like a remembrance.
I could say, and I think there's like lessons, like for example, like I had this like vivid dream / flashback that like in Lemuria, my dog was my little brother, but he was a boy, like a little boy, but it's like now my dog's soul. And like that we went through this like whole thing where I was supposed to be watching him, and then he got hurt, and it just like explains that why I'm such a helicopter mom to my dog. So like there's like just little things where you'll have these like, oh, okay, yeah, I know this soul, I've gone through this with this person, and that's why this is this way here. And then you can like adjust it and shift it and play with it. And when you can like even, kind of teleport back there. And this is what I've done, is like teleport back there, change the situation, and then it can affect that dynamic here, which is fun to play with.
Yeah. And just to continue and just to close that loop, the direct access to God. And that's what I've noticed has really shifted, is that like the return of the Christ consciousness, the return of, or the opening of these portals to higher dimensionality. It's like everybody's remembered their fast track to God, because if we were created by God, like it doesn't, because I think that there was a while as well that I was witnessing people put these other beings or like above us in importance, or outside, like the power outside of us, and we were looking almost like to them as saviors, or to give us more wisdom.
But it's like we were created by the same creator, so why are we putting them above us? And I think that again, like you said, just that remembrance that the fast track is going straight to God, because I a year ago wouldn't have done that, So I think a lot more people are feeling ready now to do that. And if you think about it, if you were a dark being or a dark entity or part of the world darkness, trying to keep as much darkness as you can on earth, what's the first thing you would do? Disconnect people from God. Tell people that these other beings are more powerful and smart than you. It's like, we need to be ahead of that. So it's like for the people who are still afraid to go there, like, don't let them pull the wool over your eyes. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, that's kind of the feeling that I have, like, oh, okay. So they tried. So that's why, so many people are afraid to talk to God. They wanted it that way. Like the darkness wanted it that way. And I don't know about you, but I don't mess with the darkness. And if I know they're trying to pull the wool over my eyes, I will rebel.
Like, hard no, hard pass. Yeah,
exactly.
The inner rebel.
Yeah.
And actually, one thing that I do just really want to touch upon as well is, I know that there has been resistance that both of us have experienced with Christianity or organized religion. One thing that I do really love about people who are devout Christians or Catholics, or for example, when I think of the word devotion, I think of the Balinese. Every morning, every night doing their offerings. I love the devotion that people have to God or to their gods that that within organized religion. And I think that that's a really beautiful quality that we can really bring into our spiritual practice and bring into supporting our direct relationship with God, is how can I devote myself to God in a way that is authentic to my own expression, is authentic to my own being, is an extension of my vessel. And I think that that's where there's a little bit of difference, because we've all had different experiences, right? We've all grown up with different religious upbringings, different conditioning. And the one thing that I do witness so beautifully actually is the devotion, whether we all believe in the same path or the same iterations or the gods and the goddesses and all the things, the devotion remains the same. And people, that's the reason that they've also been able to use religion as the reason or the catalyst for war throughout history, because people are so devout and actually connecting to that devotion in your own heart and feeling it and experiencing it and creating that own relationship to God. And letting your beingness, so like you were saying, like when you're in your joy, you're in your magnetism and everything is flowing to you, it's the devotion to that. It's the devotion to your experience, your lived experience as you, that actually is your power.
Exactly. And I can't remember where I read this, but can't even remember exactly how it was said, but it was something along the lines like, God has no vanity. He's not asking you to devote to him to make him feel good. He's doing it because by devoting to him, you're opening up to a deeper connection so he can serve you more and he can help you and he can guide you more. So, because I know like some people, again, if you were in any kind of religion where you're, bowing down, sometimes there's like an ego part of you that's like, that can feel kind of weird, right? To like being bowing down to some energy, but looking at it from the perspective of like, it's not to serve his vanity. Like, it's not from that place. Like that just put a light bulb off for me. And obviously it's not just to be 100% self-serving, but you're opening up to like a deeper connection. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's really funny that you say that, because if you had asked me years ago to get on my knees for God, I would have been like, no. But now I'm like, I will get on my knees for God.
Exactly.
I will get on my knees.
Exactly.
I will throw my heart on the floor.
Right? And I'm like, and that's all very new for me too. And I think for anyone listening, if they're like, I don't know, for me, it was like reading A Course in Miracles. Like I'm reading the book. I'm not doing like the Marianne Williamson thing. I'm like actually just reading the book. I'm not doing the workbook. I'm actually reading the book. That's been really helpful. And then also, do you ever listen to Joel Osteen?
No.
Okay, he's just like this like non-denominational pastor. And he has like a podcast and he does talk about the Bible a little bit though. But in a way, like he kind of like breaks down just a few of the stories in his sermons or whatever, and then talks about, it all ties back to like the message of that episode or whatever. But it's just like very like generic, like he's not getting like super deep into any specific area of Christianity other than like God, Jesus, and a few stories from the Bible that all tie back to the message of that episode. So I would start, if you're interested, like it feels he's like has like a harsh like Texas accent, and like it can feel like kind of funny listening to it at first. My husband's like, oh, what are you listening to? But it's just like so high vibe. I just like, I can't explain. I feel so good after I listen to it.
I love that. I love that so much. And I love that you're reading The Course in Miracles. Like I did to be honest, the Marianne Williamson, I listened to it twice back to back because it is so powerful. Yeah. And I really loved her take on it. I haven't bitten the bullet to actually read it firsthand. Yeah. But if anybody wants like a little taste, maybe listen to the Marianne Williamson first and then dive into A Course in Miracles, because it's all essentially connecting to to love.
Yeah,
to love,
exactly.
to the divine expression of love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I bought the Marianne Williamson, like it was like a 365-day thing. Is that the one that you did? There was like a little video.
I listened to it.
Okay, so this was probably different. It was like a little course kind of. So it was like every day she would read something from the Course in Miracles and then teach you about it, and then you would have a little practice. And there was like just like one for every day. And I got to like day 30 or something, and I was just like, I feel like I could go deeper. Like, I feel like this isn't deep enough for me. And then I went to the book. So yeah.
I love that.
But I also bought the book years ago, tried to pick it up a million times, and it wasn't resonating, or I was like, oh, what are they like? I was like, what? Like, it's like, you'll read it when you're ready to read it, I think.
Yes. And I think that's really, it's part of the trusting in the divine timing as well.
Yeah,
like
totally.
It'll come at the perfect time when it's going to support you in whatever place in your journey. And sometimes our consciousness has to get to a certain level of awareness to actually be able to digest it, because A Course in Miracles is hefty.
Yeah. Yes.
And if you tried to read it like 3 years ago, you might not have actually got from it what your soul really needed. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I only read like a little bit at like a page and a half at a time. Like, that's all my brain can, that's all I can wrap around. But, and then I'll like have to like journal a little bit. You have to like kind of get used to the language. I'm like, okay, so when they say this, they mean ascension. When they mean this, they mean like when they're saying the kingdom, I think they're talking about the fifth dimension. When, you know, it's like I had to kind of like make sense of like the words they were using. But yeah, it's been really good.
Yeah. And actually, it's really funny that you say that. I will watch movies now with that lens of like understanding or understanding the pieces that tie in, or the messages, or like there's a lot of like Avatar, for example. I was like, or watching it pre-awakening and post-awakening, I'm like, oh, it's different.
Yeah. Well, and the Matrix, like,
the Matrix, whole other thing. And that was really interesting as well, that the new one came out in the middle of the chaos and the red pill, the blue pill, the whole thing. The irony was brilliant. There's also something else that I was wanting to just briefly touch upon. Is actually to invite you to share what your most potent and powerful practice has been in connecting to or realizing your own divinity and actually connecting to God, to the divine. Like, what has been the most powerful tool for you that you've used?
Yeah, great question. Because I think it all comes back to this. Like, it all comes back to like the consistency, the ritual, the devotion. Like, there's nothing else. There's nothing that we can like force that can happen without having that foundation. So for me, the most powerful thing is really like, I mean, at the very basic of it, it's prayer. I call them like invocations. So invocations for me have been probably the most powerful ritual. And I'll kind of often do like the same one every day. And until a point where I feel I need to add something in or take something out. But it's very simple, like just asking to clear my aura, clear my body, clear the space, you know, clearing protection, all those things, and then activating my sovereignty and making sure to do so in all timelines and all dimensions, and then calling back all parts of my soul that are in other timelines and dimensions to connect back to me with wisdom. And I'll, you know, there's kind of like different like chunks and sections so that I can like memorize it. Like I'll often like write it down first. And then, so I have a lot of these on the app as well. So I've recorded them and you can just listen to me say it and then repeat after me, which is a lot easier than trying to memorize it. And like, I don't want to be like reading, it's like, I want to have my eyes closed and like, so, but yeah, I would say like, it's prayer, it's invocation, and it's just a reconnecting to all versions of ourselves. And then remembering that everything that we need is inside. So reconnecting to our sovereignty. And I know when like everything was going on in the world, I like to think we've already crossed that timeline. I always just said, I'm the creator of my own freedom. I'm the creator of my own freedom. I'm the creator of my own freedom. And that was always a part of my invocation. It was like calling on the energy of freedom and sovereignty. So, literally, like, who'd have thought prayer would be my answer? But
I know. And this is the thing, like, you say to either of us, however many years ago, hey, you're going to be getting on your knees and praying to God. Exactly. You would have been like,
right? I know. And it's like, I know. And most people would be like, but like, you talk to aliens, like, that's not different. I'm like, no, prayer is stronger than talking to aliens. Like, so, it's not, again, we think that it needs to be this huge slap you upside the head thing to create your awakening, but it's not. It's the consistent little prayers that make the difference. It really is.
Simplicity and creating your own connection, like you say, to God, and remembering sovereignty. And I think that is something that I really take from the Christ consciousness is he was like Jesus Christ or Yeshua and Mary Magdalene. I know we haven't gone into that, but they were the embodiment of sovereignty, self-sovereignty.
Exactly.
It wasn't follow me, worship me. It was the power that you see in me is the power that is within you. And you think that I am the son of God, so I have a direct like line to God, so do you. And I think that is this really beautiful thing that you just touched upon is like the prayer, the simplicity of prayer, and creating your own connection from a sovereign space. I love that as a ritual.
Yes.
And you have the app, which I'm going to link in the show notes, so that if anybody does want to listen to your beautiful invocations and to try out all of the rituals that you have so beautifully created, all of the information is going to be in the show notes.
Yes, there's lots of things on there. Like we are going to have some starseed stuff on there because I know people want it, but I also have a section of like Course in Miracles and like the Christ consciousness stuff. So I like balanced it out that way. I'm like, okay, people want this, but they need God. So we'll have both.
And I think that that's the beautiful thing as well, is when you have experience with the multi-dimensions, with the aliens, with the the different star seeds and all of the things, it doesn't make it any less true, because people are going to find their way in whatever way, but it all accumulates and takes you to the same place.
It's all a gateway. It's all a gateway to God. It really is. And another really important thing to know about the connection is that, and it says this in A Course in Miracles, like once we have accepted God into our lives and we've devoted ourselves to this path of ascension, which essentially is just bringing in more love and having more integrity, and having the connection to God, then we are already safe. We are saved. We are like, we have like this bubble of light around us and we're protected. And it's like, I feel that like just by simply having this deeper connection and relationship to God, I feel safe. I was scared before. I'm an Aquarius conspiracy theorist. I've gone down all the rabbit holes. I was, I was scared for a point in time, but like literally once you've gone on that path of ascension, you're protected and you're safe. And I know that might sound crazy, but it's true. And I think that's just such an important piece.
And I think it's just to really like hammer that home. It's that sovereignty. It's that remembering that you are the divine bridge. You are the bridge. And or like everything that we've touched upon, any other entities, like when people are experiencing like dark entities in their house, or like, you know, anything like that, you always call in God.
Exactly.
That's the only thing that actually supports in banishing the darkness. And I just love that you had reiterated that, because it is really important. And there's a lot of fear around actually speaking that, or being witnessed in that, or heard in saying like, hey, like, I'm giving it all to God. There's a lot of judgment around it. And especially with you and sharing that you were an Aquarius, like conspiracy theorist, and that you've been down all the rabbit holes, that's probably a lot of your following. And this transition into devotion to God is not necessarily congruent, even though it's completely congruent.
Exactly. So hopefully more people are inspired by it and interested in it than they are confused by it.
Yeah.
But it's like they'll be able to feel it. Like once you just like take that first step, you know that it feels good and it feels right. So
yeah. And look, that's why we're having the conversation, to inspire conversation, to spark an awakening, to spark a remembrance of something, right? That's literally where this podcast was born from, is the desire to have these conversations that I have in private with friends and like-minded people, and bringing it to the forefront because it's important.
Exactly. And it might even be one of those things where someone's listening and they're like, okay, well, I'll talk to God, but I'm not researching Jesus. That's too churchy for me. You know, it's like, you might just pick one thing that feels like, okay, yeah, I think I could like look a little more into that. And then that was kind of my experience too. And then I just kept kind of like feeling better and better and better and adding in more. And so, yeah, it'll be a different path for everyone. So just be open to what it looks like for you.
Thank you so much. Is there any final parting words of wisdom that you have for anybody listening today? Any final sign-offs that you wish to share?
No, I just think to reiterate like the consistency and the small growth, and to like, if there's something that you're wanting for or desiring or working towards right now, and you don't have it this very second, and you're in a feeling of like, is this ever going to happen for me? Just be in faith, because if it is meant to, it will. And it will happen when you're not in that place of, oh my God, I need this. This is ever going to happen. It's like when you're in the place of faith. So just trust. I
love that. Trust. Amen. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for all of your beautiful wisdom, for the codes, and your incredible offering in creating ritual space for the masses. I think it's so needed and it's so powerful, and just deep bow to you and the work that you're doing in the world. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
It's so cool.
This has been wild and untamed. Thank you for joining us with this episode, and we would love to hear from you. If you feel to reach out to either of us and share your thoughts, your feelings on the episode, we are here for it. If you take a little look in the show notes, we have beautiful free offerings. Emily has given everybody a 14-day free trial for her Rituals app. And yeah, we love to receive the comments, receive the ratings. If you love this episode, if it really resonated, if you feel to share it with any friends, I invite you to do all of the above. And just sending you so much love until we meet again next time.